Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Menopause is one of those things people talk about in hushed tones, right? Like it's this big mystery,
Mm.
or something to be dreaded.
It's really interesting because that's exactly what Lisa Mosconi tackles in her book, The Menopause Brain.
Okay.
She really challenges that whole idea of decline,
Right.
and she reframes menopause as this neurological transition,
Mm.
which I think is really, it's a helpful way to look at it. It paves the way for a whole new set of cognitive strengths. It's not all downhill after.
So no more doom and gloom about the change.
Yeah.
Got it. But Dr. Mosconi, she doesn't sugarcoat things either. Like she dives right into this whole idea of bikini medicine, which I have to say that term made me laugh when I first heard it. But it's also pretty eye-opening.
Yeah, it highlights a really important problem
Yeah.
that we've had in women's health for a really long time, which is that we've tended to view women's health, and in particular women's brains,
Yeah.
solely through the lens of reproductive organs, right?
Hmm.
Like it's all about that. And so we miss out on a lot when we take that narrow of a focus.
And it's not just about feeling dismissed in the doctor's office either.
Yeah.
I mean, it has real implications for research and for understanding conditions that disproportionately affect women.
Exactly. Like if you look at Alzheimer's disease, for instance,
Right.
women are statistically way more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease than men.
Yeah.
And yet it's often perceived as a man's disease, right?
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is because research had really overlooked the way that hormones and brain aging are really intertwined for women.
Right. So it's not just about hot flashes and night sweats. We're talking about serious health implications here,
Exactly.
which is why I think it's so important to understand how our brains change during this time.
Absolutely. And, knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding these changes empowers women to advocate for better care, make more informed decisions about their health.
It's about time we flip the script on menopause and look at it through a lens of empowerment. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
But speaking of changes, Dr. Mosconi doesn't just focus on the menopausal brain like in isolation, right?
Hmm.
She connects it to these other major hormonal shifts that happen throughout a woman's life, like puberty, pregnancy,
That's the beauty of the 3Ps framework.
and 3Ps.
It helps us see these seemingly disparate life stages as really interconnected, right?
Yeah.
And how each one profoundly influences brain structure and function.
So let's get into those because it's not always obvious how pregnancy brain
Right.
could have anything to do with the menopause decades later. So give us a rundown of what's actually happening in the brain during these pivotal times.
Well, think about it this way. Each of these Ps involves a surge in hormones, essentially rewiring the brain for a new stage of life. So puberty, for instance, it's not just about, developing physically.
Right.
There are some really significant neurological changes happening that shape everything from your emotional responses to your cognitive abilities.
And those changes don't just disappear, right, once puberty's over. They kind of lay the groundwork for how our brains are going to react to hormonal fluctuations later on.
Precisely.
Okay.
And then along comes pregnancy,
Right.
which is an even more dramatic example of these hormonal shifts.
For sure.
And Dr. Mosconi talks about this fascinating research that shows that women's brains actually shrink during pregnancy.
Wait, they shrink.
They do.
That doesn't sound good.
It's not a bad thing.
Okay.
So before you panic,
Okay, good.
this gray matter reduction
Okay.
is associated with stronger maternal bonding. So it's like the brain is optimizing itself for motherhood.
Oh, interesting.
Right. It's prioritizing those connections and neural pathways
Fascinating.
that are essential for nurturing and caregiving.
So trade a little bit of gray matter for a whole lot of love and connection.
Exactly.
I'll take that deal.
Right.
But I'm guessing this rewiring doesn't just disappear once the baby arrives either.
You're catching on.
Okay.
Pregnancy leaves its mark on the brain, and it influences things like empathy, intuition, even decision-making,
Wow.
long after those, sleep-deprived days are over.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It really shows how adaptable our brains are
Absolutely.
throughout our lives.
And that brings us to the third P,
Okay.
perimenopause, right? It's
Okay.
like the culmination of all these previous hormonal and neurological shifts, and it's setting the stage for the menopausal brain.
So we've got puberty laying the foundation, pregnancy rewiring for motherhood, and then perimenopause ushers in this whole new phase of brain evolution. It's like a lifelong symphony of hormones and neurons, and each one builds upon the last.
It's a beautiful way to put it, and it really underscores the importance of understanding these transitions not as isolated events, but as these interconnected chapters in the story of a woman's brain.
And understanding those chapters is key to rewriting the narrative of menopause itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what we're going to dig into after. All right, so we've established it's not just about hot flashes. We're talking like full-on brain reorganization here.
Right.
But let's be honest, those hot flashes are hard to ignore. So let's talk about those and all the other fun symptoms that can come along for the ride.
Well, and those symptoms are really, in a lot of ways, a testament to just how complex this interplay of hormones and neurotransmitters is in the brain during menopause.
Yeah.
So take hot flashes, for instance.
Okay.
We tend to think of them as just, feeling overheated.
All right, like your internal thermostat's broken.
Exactly. But they're actually triggered by fluctuations in estrogen.
Okay.
And estrogen directly impacts the hypothalamus, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for regulating your body temperature.
So there's a real neurological basis for this. It's not just in our heads.
It's not just in your head, it's in your brain.
Well, I mean, I guess it's all connected, right?
It is, yeah.
But speaking of things that are going on in our brains, how about brain fog?
Oh, brain fog is, yeah.
Because I've heard that's a thing.
It's real. It's incredibly common
Okay.
during menopause, and again,
Yeah.
tied to these hormonal shifts.
Yeah.
Estrogen plays a role in memory and cognitive function.
Okay.
So when those levels fluctuate,
Yeah.
it can really mess with your ability to recall things or focus.
Makes sense. So it's like our brain is working, but the power supply keeps like dipping up and down.
Exactly. It's like having
Instead of that steady stream of power.
Yeah, exactly. You're like running out of batteries.
And then it comes back for a little while and then it dips down again.
Exactly. And then we can't forget the emotional roller coaster that so often comes along.
Oh, the emotional roller coaster. Don't even get me started.
Mood swings,
Oh, yeah.
irritability, feelings of anxiety,
Yeah.
low mood, all these can be really common and, again, tied to these hormone fluctuations.
Right. I mean, it's like our brains are doing this really complicated dance with estrogen and progesterone and like who knows what else is going on up there.
It's a lot.
No wonder we feel a little chaotic sometimes.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
And when those fluctuations happen, it can really throw things off. But even with all of that, Dr. Mosconi really emphasizes that this is not a descent into decline.
Okay, good.
It's a transition, yes. But it's a transition to a new phase with its own strengths, its own opportunities.
Okay, I like where you're going here. So we've talked about some of the maybe not so fun parts of the transition.
Yeah.
What's the upside? Like, tell me more about this reframing of menopause.
Well, she talks about this really fascinating theory
Okay.
called the grandmother hypothesis.
The grandmother hypothesis. Okay, I'm listening.
And this theory suggests that menopause, far from being some kind of evolutionary accident,
Yeah.
might actually be crucial for human survival
Interesting.
and
All right.
social development.
Okay, now this is what I'm talking about. This is like a whole new way of looking at menopause. So lay it on me. What's the thinking here?
So the theory basically says that women evolving to live well beyond our reproductive years provided a significant advantage for human societies. Think about it.
Yeah.
Grandmothers, free from the demands of childbirth and childcare.
Yeah, that's a lot right there.
We can dedicate our time and energy to supporting our families, our communities, in different ways, but equally crucial ways.
So instead of fading into the background, grandmothers become these pillars of like wisdom, experience, support,
Exactly.
passing down knowledge,
Yeah.
helping raise the grandkids, like strengthening those social bonds.
That's right.
That is a far cry from menopause as a decline.
It really is.
It's like menopause is an ascension.
Right.
I like,
And it's not just a nice idea.
yeah.
There's actual research to back this up. There have been studies showing that grandmothers' involvement in their grandkids' lives has a really positive impact on everything, from their cognitive development to their social skills.
That is so cool.
Isn't it?
It really makes you think about aging in a whole new way,
It really does.
especially for women.
And it highlights, again, the contributions that women make throughout our lifespan.
Yeah. This isn't the end of an era. This is like the beginning of a whole new chapter
Exactly.
with its own set of, equally important roles and contributions.
It's a different kind of...
different flavor.
Yeah, it's a different focus, right? It's shifting from that focus on reproduction to maybe more of a focus on legacy.
Legacy.
Mhm.
I love that. This is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
It really makes you question everything we thought we knew. in a good way.
Oh, okay.
But it makes me wonder, how do we navigate this transition? And I don't just mean physically, but like mentally, emotionally as well. Because information is power, right? But it's the application of it that really like empowers us.
Absolutely. And that's where Dr. Mosconi's insights about things like lifestyle and nutrition and mindset become really invaluable.
Okay, so let's get into that, because I think we could all use a little extra support during this time. What are some of the key takeaways that we can use to kind of, go through menopause? Not just, survive it, but thrive in it.
Right.
So we're ready to thrive.
Right.
But let's be real, some days are going to be easier than others. So what are some practical things we can do to support ourselves during this time? I don't think it's just a matter of like, crossing our fingers and hoping for the best.
Right. Well, and Dr. Mosconi really stresses that, there is no one-size-fits-all solution here.
Of course, yeah.
Which I think is really important.
Right, because what works for your best friend might not work for you at all.
Exactly. It's really about figuring out what works best for you as an individual.
Right.
In consultation with your healthcare provider, of course.
Right. Always. Always. But let's get into some of the options, because I think, a lot of times we don't even realize what's out there.
Absolutely.
So, what are we talking about here?
Well, one of the first things she addresses is hormone replacement therapy.
HRT?
Or HRT, right. It's kind of, it's a hot topic.
Yo.
It's a hot topic. A lot of people have a lot of feelings about it.
I feel like everybody and their mother has an opinion on HRT.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of conflicting info out there, What's the real story?
Well, so she kind of dives into the history of HRT a little bit, acknowledges both the benefits and the potential risks, right?
Yeah.
And emphasizes that the timing and the type of HRT are really, really crucial. It's not just,
Should I or shouldn't I?
should I, shouldn't I? Exactly.
Right, it's more nuanced than that.
It's a much more nuanced conversation to have
Okay.
with your doctor
Yeah.
to determine, is it right for you? And if so, what approach? What's the timing? All of those details really matter.
Right. Well, and there are more options now than ever, right?
Exactly.
I mean, we've got things like bioidentical hormones.
Right. And those can be a great option for people who are maybe a little hesitant about the traditional HRT route or just prefer a more natural approach.
Yeah. Okay, so besides hormones, whether or not you go down that road, what else is out there?
Well, she really highlights the power of lifestyle changes. And this is where I think it gets really empowering, because you're not just talking about managing symptoms.
Yeah.
You're talking about supporting brain health long term.
Okay, so what can we do? Like, give me the good stuff. What are we talking about here? What kind of lifestyle changes?
So diet's a big one, right?
Yeah, always.
And she's a huge advocate for a Mediterranean-style eating pattern.
Oh, I love Mediterranean. Okay, so break that down for me. What does that look like?
Lots of fruits and veggies.
Okay.
Lots of color on your plate.
Yeah, I like it.
Whole grains.
Where?
Healthy fats like olive oil, avocados, and then lean protein sources.
So it's not about deprivation at all.
Not at all.
It's about delicious, nourishing food.
Exactly.
Okay, I like it. What else?
And then there's exercise, of course.
Oh, yeah, gotta move that body in a...
Gotta move.
It's like a magic pill.
It really is, for both our physical and mental health.
Yeah, for sure.
And she highlights a lot of studies showing that regular physical activity can really improve cognitive function, boost mood,
Okay.
can even help with those hot flashes.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm listening. I'm sold.
Right.
Sign me up.
Exactly.
But what about stress?
Yeah.
Because, life doesn't stop just because we're going through menopause.
That is so true. Stress management is so key.
Yeah.
And she recommends things like, mindfulness meditation, yoga, spending time in nature, whatever helps you unwind and de-stress.
Yes, those are great. And, what about sleep? Because I know if I don't get enough sleep, all bets are off. My brain is not working. My mood is terrible. Like, it affects everything.
It really does. And that's one of the first things to go often during menopause is sleep. So she talks a lot about, establishing a regular sleep schedule, making sure you have a relaxing bedtime routine, limiting caffeine and alcohol before bed, all of that good sleep hygiene stuff.
These are fantastic takeaways. It's like this holistic approach to our well-being. Recognizing that everything's connected, our hormones, our brains, our lifestyle.
All related, right.
Yeah. And it's empowering to realize that we do have more control than we often think we do.
Exactly. And it's really about shifting from that mindset of fear or resignation to one of curiosity, of empowerment.
I love that.
this is a journey.
It is.
And like any journey, it's best navigated with, information.
Yes.
With a good sense of humor.
A little humor goes a long way.
And self-compassion, right?
Yes. So important. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one message you really want our listeners to walk away with today?
I think the biggest takeaway is that menopause is not the end. It's a transformation.
Yeah.
It's a time of immense change, but it's also a time of incredible potential. So it's really about, embracing this new chapter with curiosity, seeking out information and support, and advocating for your own health and well-being.
It's about rewriting that narrative. From decline to resilience to wisdom, continued growth. A little badassery thrown in there too, why not?
A little badassery never hurt anyone.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into this fascinating world of the menopausal brain. We'll catch you next time for another exploration into, science and the human experience.